I had some thoughts about a picture that a friend of mine shared on Facebook the other day. I'll show you the picture. It's this picture right here. It's taken from, apparently taken from a sign on the LA Metro, and it reads, respect to our women passengers, please refrain from the following: staring.
Test. All right. Test. Yeah. That's true. Nobody's ever stared at a man. That's true. Nobody's... my mouth doesn't work anymore. That's true. Nobody's ever stared at a man.
Masturbating.
Or masturbated in the same bus as a man.
Following.
Or followed a man around the bus.
Unwanted touching.
Or touched a man without his... Oh. How do I turn this off? How do I...
Unwanted conversation.
No, it's not... Where's the stop button on this thing?
You suck that cock? Put it in your throat, girl. You gotta get that cum everywhere. You little hoe. You little naughty girl. You're naughty. You're naughty.
Oh, okay. Sorry, where were we?
Asking women where they're from.
Oh yeah, and of course, nobody's ever hit on a man. Why would they? They're all gross and hairy.
And then the little fine print down there says, these actions create an unsafe space.
I agree for most of them. Being followed around or stared at or touched or pestered about my posture or having someone masturbate near me on my commute really does make me feel unsafe or at best uncomfortable. I wouldn't mind more of the simple, hi, where are you from sort of small talk though. Nobody really engages in casual social interaction with other people in public transit anymore. It's kind of sad, but apparently it makes women feel uncomfortable though. They must prefer sitting rigidly, staring into the middle distance for the whole trip. That's a weird stereotype.
And contribute to violence against women.
Contributes to violence? How exactly? Things like following or touching or staring or masturbating could foreshadow violence, but the rates of violence against women are calculated based on violent actions themselves, not uncomfortable potential precursors to violent actions. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, Steve. Before he hit me and stole my purse, he stared at me. Therefore his violence was caused by his staring. Oh, if only he could keep his eyes to himself, he'd be such a peaceful man.
If you are unable to refrain from harassing other passengers...
That's meant to say women passengers, right? Otherwise, it refers to men as well, and that's sexist against women. Don't worry, audience, you'll find out exactly what I mean by that later in the video. Go right ahead and harass everyone else, though, because all men feel perfectly safe when people harass them on the bus. I know every time I'm on a half-empty bus and a 6'8" guy who smells like dog food squeezes up against me and starts talking about his sex life, I'm totally cool with it, because I'm a man. You know how it is, dog. Bros before personal bubbles. And I'm sure you've had some meth addict put her hand on your knee and follow you when you change seats, and you totally gave her a high five for making you feel totally safe. Right?
Man, good thing we're big, strong men, and not one of those delicate little flowers they call women, who are so weak that inappropriate touching makes them feel uncomfortable. Can you imagine what life must be like for such low creatures with so little fortitude, Steve?
Can you, Steve?
Please change seats and notify the bus operator.
The person doing the harassing is apparently supposed to change seats and notify the bus operator. Driver, I'm masturbating in public while I comment to strangers on the weather and I just can't stop. But don't worry, I changed seats. In what idealized little fictional universe would this advice actually be effective? No, if you're being harassed, fucking change seats and inform the bus driver whether you're a man or a woman or a Ken doll or whatever other configuration of bits and bobs is stuck to your torso. Don't just fucking sit there while dog food guy jerks his gherk until he splashes all over your pant leg. I don't care if it's victim blaming. Deal with your problems. The nutters causing your problems aren't going to deal with themselves on your behalf. They're busy doing their own weird thing.
So that's the image. It was shared by my friend Neely on Facebook. And the first comment under the picture when she shared it was some dude asking, why does it say respect women passengers? Why doesn't it say respect all passengers?
Oh, silly man. It's because you're a man and you like it when people masturbate next to you on the bus while fondling your hair. After all, they do it because of your patriarchy. You endorse that behavior by existing, you fucking shitlord. Besides, you're not allowed to claim you have the right not to be sexually harassed on the bus. Didn't you pay attention to Jeff D when he said,
yeah, if you're already in the advantageous position and you're trying to secure rights and maintain the rights you've got, you're trying to maintain a position of authority. of undeserved superiority. And that's where the men's rights movement departs from my views. And I'm sorry if, Isaac, if you have a problem with me expressing my revulsion at the idea of a group that already has an unfair advantage trying to hang on to that unfair advantage, but that is my view. I'm all right with people attempting to acquire and secure rights as long as it's not at the expense of others,
Right.
as long as it's not obstructing others, and as long as one side doesn't already have a fair advantage. Because then when they try to acquire and secure rights, I pretty much automatically think they're dicks. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in the male genitalia. I shouldn't use that word. They're bad people. I think if you already hold the high ground and you're concerned about securing and maintaining your rights, you're already in the wrong. I disagree with the men's rights movement because, as far as I can tell, men are already in the superior position with regard to rights, and so all attempts by men to fight for their rights look to me like a circus. Okay,
And that's Jeff fucking D, anonymous commenter. Jeff D of the Atheist Experience. He's a god among atheists. So let the creepy bus lady touch your penis, you disgusting misogynist. I don't care if you don't like it. Grit your teeth and take it. You don't have the right to complain. Oh, and don't even think about telling the bus driver. He's just gonna laugh in your face. After all, it must all be in your head. It only happens to women.
And it ties in very closely with another commonly heard stupid question, which is, why do they call it feminism? If it's for gender equality, why do they call it feminism? Why doesn't it just refer to itself as humanism?
They can call it whatever they like as long as they actually work for equality. If feminism is supposed to be synonymous with women's rights activism, then there's no need at all for feminists to fight for men's rights. That's not their focus, I get it. But let's not pretend that you're fighting for women's rights by putting up signs implying that only women can be harassed and only men can harass, and that women are some cowering, downtrodden mass of cattle, collectively soaked in the bus jizz of the patriarchy. This is not women's rights activism. It's not some noble pursuit. It's just the senseless, institutionalized hurling of one set of degrading insults at women and a different set at men.
And the reason I say that this is a stupid question is because it ignores the obviously apparent reality that you can see just by opening your eyes and observing the behavior and the traditions and the values and the customs of the culture that you are a fucking part of. The reason why it's called feminism while advocating for gender equality is because females are the gender that are the underprivileged, underserved gender.
So it's got absolutely nothing to do with institutional or legal discrimination and everything to do with behavior and culture. You know, I can't exactly say that's going to keep me up at night racked with anatomical guilt, especially while people like you are going around lauding a sign on a public bus insisting that women should be free from harassment, but ignoring men, like me and most others who've used public transportation in a city, who've experienced exactly the same kind of harassment described by that sign.
You attain gender equality by advocating for the rights of the underprivileged gender. Do you see how this works?
How do you determine which gender is underprivileged? Do you take all the laws of the nation and the state and weigh them somehow based on their gender discrimination and average them? Oh wait, it's about culture, not law, so you, ask people to rate how creeped out they are by bus wankers and average the results? You know, I've seen some of your videos on feminism, and so far you haven't convinced me that women are some underprivileged, oppressed class. In fact, all you've done is convince me further that there's very little significant difference between the social privileges and status of men and women in the US. So since for the moment I reject it until you can come up with some better arguments, let's set aside the culture thing for a second and talk about the law. Steve, if you can point to a legal privilege that women lack, I wholeheartedly encourage you to work to fix it. An example that comes to mind is countries where maternity leave exists and paternity leave doesn't, or where it's applied in a lopsided manner. In this scenario, even if it would make more sense for her husband to take time off work, for example, if he makes less money, A woman still can't avoid taking this financial and career hit because he doesn't have the option of paternity leave. And this forces a lot of women to leave their job, at least temporarily, when they have a child, with less compensation than normal or even none. That makes it a lot harder for them to get and keep jobs. It makes it harder to support a family. This type of scenario, which I think exists to some extent in Canada, would be something that I would congratulate you on if you addressed it. In order to maintain equal opportunities for women, parental leave should be regarded as just that. Let's completely scrap maternity and paternity leave and make it simply parental with no distinction made based on gender. I think that's a good idea. Because otherwise you're fucking with women.
Yeah.
Even though people think you're fucking with men. But you really are fucking with women.
Well, yeah, they're the ones who are forced to take the leave.
Yeah. But this also goes the other way. Inequalities on both sides have to be addressed in order to ease the strain they put on individuals and on society as a whole. Now, this sign is not at all the kind of inequality I'm talking about, okay? This is just some stupid sign on a bus in LA, and as a result, I don't really care. This is that culture stuff you were talking about. That's irrelevant to me. But your defense of it shows the very ugly, sexist side of your otherwise likable personality.
It's the same reason why we call it the gay rights movement. It's not because we think gay people deserve to be better than straight people. It's because gay people are in the inferior position and we want to raise them up to equality. That's how you attain equality.
Again, I fully support opposing legal discrimination against any particular group based on any arbitrary and harmless difference. I see no reason at all to disallow gay people from marrying, since marriage is nothing more than a legal agreement. In fact, let me see if I can out-progressive you here. I see no reason to prevent people from marrying their relatives or marrying in groups as long as we can find some way to first address the potential of genetically disordered inbred children and the tax and immigration and divorce and potential abuse issues arising from marriages of more than two partners and whatever other issues crop up. In my opinion, it's entirely valid to take up the cause of fixing legal injustices that you see any group facing if that group's problems are your personal interest, and if you're working to fix the problems of that group, you don't have to concentrate on other groups. That's fine. But again, this is about legal discrimination, not this hand-wavy cultural thing. To be honest, I see you doing approximately dick all to address any legal discrimination against women.
The reason why the sign on the bus, on the metro, says, "Don't masturbate to female passengers," is because female passengers are the ones who are made to feel unsafe by that behavior.
There, see? I'm not the only one who thinks the sign doesn't acknowledge that men also feel unsafe when they're harassed on the bus. But hey, apparently that's good and noble discrimination, because, sexism is, it's power and, privilege and, rape culture?
Now, I'm not saying that a female passenger on a metro has never just openly started masturbating to a man.
Well, that's good, Steve, because unless you've never used the transit or sat in a bus station in a big city, I'm pretty sure you know as well as I do that women can be just as disturbing as men. Women can be drunks or drug addicts or have mental issues just as easily as men can. Women have sex drives and weird fetishes just like men do, and they sure as hell aren't all such precious angels that they won't go to town on their fish taco while they go to town on the bus. And don't you dare tell me that I and the women nearby don't share a roughly equal revulsion to such a thing.
I don't want to say for sure that that's never happened, but I would guess that the ratio is pretty lopsided.
It may well be, but you'd think that the fact that there exists something of a cottage industry of women masturbating in public on camera would cause you to think twice before making your snide little insinuation that, I don't want to say it never happens. I don't care if the person doing that on the bus has a sticky clam or a smeggy slug, or if they're doing it for fun or for money. It's gross either way, and I'd like to be respected enough to not have someone's junk exposed on the seat next by, whether they've got an innie or an outie. But apparently, if it's just me and the masturbator on the bus, they can have at it because only the women passengers need to be respected.
It's mostly men doing that to mostly women. That is the nature of the problem that the sign is meant to address.
If someone is masturbating on the bus, it affects everyone in the vicinity, not just the women. But I think I've said that enough times that the point should hopefully be well enough made by now. So fine, let's pretend that only one individual at a time is affected by busturbators and further accept this dubious premise for the sake of argument and say that it's a 90-10 split. That is, 90% is men bothering women and 10% is everything else. Women bothering men, men bothering men, women bothering women. You know, actually, oddly, this sign seems to acknowledge women-on-women harassment as a problem, but not women-on-men harassment, so let's call it a 93-7 split instead. Is that 7% irrelevant? Are those 7% just fine by you? Whoever wasted their ink printing that useless sign that no actual perpetrators will care about wasted a further 5 letters worth of ink to add the word women, just to make their sign address fewer incidents. It's like they're sacrificing 7% of their sign's functionality to the feminist gods, like pouring a bit of beer on the ground in tribute.
That's why it fucking says respect our women passengers, not respect all passengers.
Do black lives matter or do all lives matter? Black lives, you racist! Steve, personally, from my experiences in public transportation, I'd really enjoy it if I were respected all the time. It's not going to happen anytime soon because drug addicts and drunks and weirdos don't care about my poor widow feels any more than they care about anyone else's. But I'd really appreciate it if you'd at least acknowledge that you, not even me, but you, don't deserve to experience that kind of thing. Have some self-respect. You're a human being, just like women are. And any respect they're due on the bus is equally due to you, and it shouldn't matter if you experience it 90% or 7% or 0.5% as often as they do. It still happens, and you should be included as one of those passengers who shouldn't be harassed. When someone comes up with a reasonable idea like trying to prevent inappropriate touching and masturbation on the bus, but then actually spends extra time deliberately making it clear that this attempt at prevention does not apply if these same things are done to you, Steve, based solely on some property of yourself that you were born with and can't change, don't defend them. Even if your sign did say, please respect our passengers, instead of granting only women passengers the scarce and valuable resource of respect, it would still prevent approximately 0 cases of fuck all anything, but at least the bus company would look less dickish.
All right? Have you got it? It's not an accusation that you personally are a rapist.
Whoa! Who said it was? What the fuck? What? Huh?
So drop this hypersensitive defensiveness,
says the right person,
and either grow up and learn to accept the fact that we live in a society where there is gender inequality and where it disadvantages women, and that is a problem that needs to be addressed.
If I were an alien who saw this video and made my determination about human society based solely on that, I would say the exact opposite. Luckily, I'm not delusional or biased enough to see either gender as an oppressed class. Maybe you're the one who needs to grow up a little.
Or toddle off to the men's rights movement subreddits and bitch and moan with the other guys who are upset at the unfair divorce settlement.
Haha, look at that asshole! He's upset because he lost everything in the divorce! What a whiny asshole. Hey, fuckhead, suck it up! It's been a week! You want a place to stay? Suck a dick so you can rent a motel.
Or because they never get to see their kids.
How about that one? Wah! I'm not allowed to ever see the most important people in my life. Wah! My children are doomed to grow up without their father. Wah! My life is ruined and I want to kill myself. Harden the fuck up, pansy.
Or because the girl they like won't go out with them.
Oh, come on now. The guy already lost his house and his kids. You don't need to make shit up to make him look like a more pathetic whiner. I mean, seriously, what kind of misogynistic asshole cares about his house or kids, right?
There's a place for you. It's called the men's rights movement. It's a little bubble of misogyny on the internet that you can go and be with your own.
See? I wasn't just making that up. Whining about losing your kids is misogynistic, straight from the horse's mouth. Steve, I really have to make you understand this. Before I started listening carefully to what you and other feminists were saying, I didn't sympathize one tiny little bit with the men's rights people. If anything, I leaned toward buying into the negative stereotypes that float around, and I probably leaned a little bit in the feminists' favor. But that was only because I didn't care and I wasn't really paying attention. But now that I've heard so goddamn much of the rhetoric coming from your team, and at the moment specifically from you, I am absolutely disgusted at how you treat people. Here's another example.
If wives really are beating up their husbands as often as many within the men's rights movement suggest, why aren't more of these husbands coming forward to report these crimes? Could it possibly be because of the same misogynistic macho bullshit that created the men's rights movement in the first place? That these husbands don't want to come forward and report their wives because they feel like getting beaten up by a woman makes them less of a man? Because they're not supposed to beat us up. It's supposed to be the other way around, right?
That's what made me start to listen to what the MRAs were actually saying. And sure, some of them are biased and unobjective just like you. They have an agenda just like you. Some of them are assholes from time to time and belittle other people's real major personal issues just like you do. But they are not collectively the demons you make them out to be. In fact, I'd say they're much more focused on real issues than you are. You go around complaining about rape culture and patriarchy and wage gaps and bus masturbators who magically only manage to bother women because there's nothing left to fight but mythical monsters. At least the MRAs have one or two genuine concerns, and they're mostly focused on the legal situation. Steve Shives, your despicably anti-human stance on gender issues has contributed to my losing all sympathy for your movement and gaining some sympathy for the one you so despise. Congratulations.
And when you ask them a question like, why does it say respect our women passengers instead of respect all passengers? Oh, you will have such a warm, welcoming response. They will not mistreat you and abuse you verbally the way I have just done. They will love you and support you for everything that you are. A deeply oppressed holder of a penis whose life has been ruined by these mean, nasty women.
Just to be clear, you're insulting anyone who thinks the sign could have been more inclusive, right? Even deeply oppressed holders of penises like my wife here?
Well, I do like to hold penises.
Shh! This is going on the internet!
So I would suggest if you can't hold up in the real world where these problems really exist,
Problems like harassment being something that can and does happen to anyone, not just women. Steve, you can't hold up in that real world. You're living in a fantasy land where everything is perfect for men and shit for women. Anyone who's paying attention knows better. Any man who's had to ride the bus to work downtown every day knows better. Weirdos are weird. To everyone. Get off your ass, drive out of fucking Hagerstown.
Here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about my hometown, Hagerstown, Maryland.
With its 40,000 people and see what real life is like for real people.
and where people feel the need to try and address them in real ways.
Wait, are you talking about the sign? That's a real way to address a problem? Are you serious? It's a politely phrased sign on the roof of a bus. It doesn't even imply a penalty for the actions it describes. I guarantee 100% of people are going to give 0% of a shit.
Put in your application for membership in the vaunted He-Man Women Haters Club.
Izet, you disagree with the wording of the sign, right?
Well, yeah. Aren't there other people than women upset by masturbation on the bus? Like, what about kids?
You need to join the vaunted He-Man Woman Haters Club, misogynist.
And just be happier over there. That's my suggestion to you. If you look at a sign like that, or if you look at the term feminism and you just can't understand why it refers specifically to women, go there. Go there. They want you. They will accept you. Personally, I have no use for you.
Of course you don't. I have a dick, and I question the judgment of the writer of a sign, and that makes me useless to you as a human being. Thanks, Steve, but I'm not going to return that insult. I think you're a pretty nice guy with a really sickening ideology. I think you want what's good for people, but you're extremely misguided about what that is. I enjoy your Atheist Reads series. Whatever else you do, keep up with that and I'll still watch you.
You know, Steve, between us, I am definitely the one who knows more about the issue. Well, not because I am a woman and you're not, but because I actually experienced abuse. I had my share of forced intercourse, dealing with stalkers, break-ins, domestic violence, and once I even risked death. And let me be clear, those people were the shit on a maggot's ass. But there was another reason I ended up in trouble. From small on, I got told how sex-driven and uncontrolled men are, and to expect a pervert behind every corner. With such abysmal expectation, how could it possibly not go wrong? If you genuinely want to help women, you have to stop treating the sexes unequally and deal with the harmful individuals instead of labeling an entire group as problematic.